Well, good evening, and welcome to another episode of Sash Mailbag. Thank you, everybody, for sending in your questions. I'm glad we're still going strong, 8 rounds in, and people haven't dropped off just yet. With me tonight is James. James, how you going?
G'day, Joel. Good to see you, mate. It was a pretty forgettable game of footy for us last week. So I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to diving into the mailbag, maybe sparking up a few of the supporters that are a bit down and out. And it's weird to say that after a win, but yeah, it was a pretty lackluster feeling after the game. So
Mm,
plenty of questions to get through tonight. Looking forward to it.
yeah, that's right. I went to the game sort of last minute. I was going out to dinner with a few colleagues, and one of them was like, "Let's go to the game. Let's go to the game." I was like, "All right, yeah, let's do it." And then one of them was someone who has been to one footy game in their life, and
And
halfway through, they were like, "Is it always this shit?" And I was like, "No, it's not always this shit." But I mean, if you come to Essendon games, well, then it will be.
yeah, possibly. I think. And look, it wasn't exactly a surprise. Let's be honest. I think all week everyone's going, "What is this fixture?" With even the Friday night game, which turned out pretty rubbish. That was more I think a coaching thing for us and North. I think it was more skill execution or lack of. But I think everyone kind of premeditated what it was going to be, and it was exactly that. But yeah, I was relieved to get over the line again over a bottom side, and happy to forget that one and move
Yeah,
on.
yeah, that's right. We'll move on swiftly. So we'll jump straight into it. And the first question we have is from Rob Scott. And Rob says, when watching the planes, what's the most bizarre superstition that you've heard of?
Yeah. Look, when I read this question, nothing immediately came to mind. I did jump online, have a bit of a look around, and see what sort of things were floating on the Reddit forums and the likes, and there was plenty of the lucky jocks and the lucky socks. I saw one that I thought might resonate with a few Essendon supporters, and that was when I watch we lose, and when I don't we win. And I reckon there's probably a few people out there that feel that way. But yeah, there's nothing that I do, and I feel like if I'd found something that worked, we wouldn't be in the position we are. So yeah, nothing that I've ever tried's worked. But what about you?
Yeah, I used to switch couches. Like if we weren't working and I was watching from home, I'd go from one couch to the other couch. But I've stopped that. I've realised resistance to Essendon's shitness is futile.
Yeah, I think yeah, it'd take a pretty strong one to cut through Essendon's issues. I feel, and as I said, if someone's found one out there, I'm sorry to say, but I don't think it's working.
Yeah, no, I send it through. Maybe it's the more the merrier. Next week's mailbag if you've got a good one, and then all of us can do it at the same time and see if that has any impact on the result.
I'm happy to try anything, mate. Happy to try anything. Next one is from Balian F87 _. Will we ever win a final again?
We get a lot like this, Balin, unsurprisingly. This is a common question that Essendon supporters ask themselves year in, year out. I think we will win a final in the not too distant future. It's going to be a glorious day. I think, look, let's not talk about if we will ever win one again. Let's just talk about how we will celebrate when we do win one. And I've told Maggie that if we win a final, I probably not to expect to hear from me for the weekend. I would say, if we win a grand final, it's a week or two that I'm going MIA, and a lot of that would be crying, a lot of that would be partying, a lot of that would be reminiscing. But yeah, what would you if we win a final? How do you think you'd feel?
It'd probably be more relief than anything because obviously, as we all know, we get a fair bit of shit hung on us for that, and I keep seeing the 21st birthday. I think it is coming up for us without a finals win. So I'd be extremely relieved to see that counter head back down to 0. And then I think it'll be a bit of a roller coaster of emotions after that. As you said, there'd be some tears of joy. There'd definitely be some partying, and I'd be keen to get the Sash community involved in terms of wherever we are, pop in, say hello. I'd say it'd probably be, as you said, a full weekend booked out.
That were the scary thing is that, as Gold Coast look like better and better and better, we can't hang our hat on them not having even made finals yet. Soon potentially, so hopefully that don't eclipse us.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, it's kind of scary when you look kind of a little bit further into the future with obviously Tassie joining, which kind of makes the draft kind of become quite thin pretty quickly. And then you've got teams like Richmond that, are struggling at the moment, but some of those draft picks that they've collected and seem to have chosen well with, we know how quickly teams can turn it around. So I'm with you. I'd like to think that it's not too far away, and I'm sure we'll celebrate hard when it happens. But yeah, you'd like to see some progression because it's scary to think that teams like Richmond could come and go past you again.
Yeah, it's awful. Now, the next one down is from Barwin Batch. They ask, is this our chance to play any kid with potential, understanding that losses equal draft picks?
I think we sort of spoke about this in the last mailbag we had, Joel. I'll start by saying, I mean, we've won 4 out of 5 games, and I know, even touching on that North game before, it was lackluster, and you sort of walked away not feeling like it was a great result for us. But we've won 4 out of 5, so I don't think that internally the football club's thinking that they're just going to throw out all their plans and play the kids. They'd be thinking there's a real opportunity to push on with some winnable games in front of us. The second part, or the way I'll answer that in the second part, is that I think, we've already seen this year injuries pop up out of nowhere. And so there's going to be some chances to play kids relatively organically. Ridley out for 8 weeks, which was some shit news earlier today. You'd think that opens the door for someone like Hayes, and that's not really a forced debut in the sense that he's not ready. He's been playing some really good footy, and people have been calling for him to play for a little while now. So he's been banging the door down. He organically gets his opportunity with Ridley out. We've spoken a little bit about the Ruck situation with Draper and Bryan out now. That might open the door for a Vicentini to come in. It looks like Goldie's going to need a spell sooner rather than later, so Vicentini might get his opportunity. So I don't think we need to be forcing that. I think, unfortunately, with our injury list, there's opportunities opening up. And yeah, as I said a couple of weeks ago now, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a Zach Johnson or an Angus Clark later on in the year, because yeah, I'm sure an opportunity will open up.
Yeah, agreed. And it's happening naturally, as you said. I'm just going to read the next one because it's more of a comment and it speaks to what we're talking about. Black Sails in the Sunset 8 says, if Hayes doesn't debut this weekend, we riot. I think it's pretty clear that he is going to debut. He was held back from the VFL, and there's a lot of murmuring. So I think it's pretty likely that he will debut this week, which I think would be our 4th or 5th for the season. The draft pick one's an interesting one because, on all reports, the 2 NGA prospects that we've got are pushing their way into second round and potentially late first round contention. So, if we've got our first round pick, Melbourne's first round pick, and one of 2 of those is worth a first round and one is worth a second, then it's going to be a good draft haul regardless. So I think we, as we said last week, and as you said, I don't think it's necessary for us to throw the book at it to now and completely just tank in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, as I said again, we've won 4 out of 5. As much as it doesn't feel like it, the club's certainly not throwing the toys out of the cod and abandoning all plans. They're going to try and push on and keep the wins rolling. And look, we're the first to admit, if we keep playing the way we are, that's not going to continue. We've had a favourable draw, but we've got the wins where traditionally maybe we would have lost those tighter games. Hopefully we can turn around and play some better footy, and we'll certainly need to, starting this weekend against an informed Sydney Swans. 2 questions together, Joel, that certainly go down the same path. First one from Brett Edo 72. I reckon the last time we flogged a team was when Vile Kyle kicked 10 against the Young Suns. Why? And then L. Rule J, how has Brad Scott mastered the art of unimpressive wins over bad teams?
Uh, yeah, God, it does feel like that was the last time we flogged a team. I think, was it 10? It might have been 8. It was more than Vile Kyle should have ever kicked in a game of footy. And first and foremost,
We kicked. I was just having a look. I was having a look before we jumped on, and we kicked 15 goals in the first quarter in that game.
That's wild. Now we kick 60 points a week, and both questions are talking to the fact that we don't win big, and yeah, often we lower our colours to the quality of the team we're playing against if they are a team that's on paper worse than us. And our percentage is something we've spoken about a bit this year as well, which always bites us in the arse when it comes to a close season towards the end. So I think this would be a really big sign if we can turn this around to when we are starting to maybe move up the ladder and starting to become consistent, when we can start beating bad teams and really putting them away. I don't think it was just a Brad Scott thing. I think this is from well before Brad Scott's time.
Yeah,
this has continued. And so it's clearly just a mindset thing. And I don't think I'd put this down just to Brad. I think this comes down to on-field leadership and senior players not letting the foot go off the pedal. So I think they're both great call-outs. I'm not sure how this turns around, but I think I would look at this as an on-field leadership. Obviously, Zach's working really, really hard, but who around him is making sure that the standards are kind of remaining no matter what we're coming up against and throughout a game, no matter what happens. And so we've got to look to the likes of McGrath and Redmond and Langford and all those guys to make sure that we're putting the boot in no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one point that I was going to make there that you touched on was that, yeah, this has been happening for a long time, and well before Brad Scott. It's one of those things that really annoys us as supporters, is that we can go on these bad runs and then we get a favourable draw and we seem to just claw our way to a win or a close loss, and you sort of have those conversations with other Essendon people. When's the last time we flogged a team? Well, Brett Ito is not far off with 2011. The biggest win that kind of is around that mark was 2013 when we beat Melbourne at the G, 184-36. And there's nothing else since then that even goes close. So another long run that we'd like to end. But there's a reason why we can't remember many of them. It's because there hasn't been any for a long, long time.
Yep. Now I'm going to jump down one or two to Dom Lipper, 31. Simple one here. When will the pain and suffering will the pain and suffering ever end? I guess
that's not Mert. It says Dom Lipper, but yeah, I'm not.
We'll get to that.
When will the pain and suffering ever end? I think it will. I'm always trying to be positive, as difficult it is.
That's right.
As you've just cracked your flask, which is timely. Look, I think it will. I think we're slowly turning the ship, as hard as it is to say after a couple of lackluster wins over cellar dwellers in West Coast and North. But yeah, I really do believe we're on the right track. It doesn't happen overnight. I'm keen to give Brad Scott a good run at this. I feel like we've turned the list over in terms of players. We've turned, I guess, the people off the field relatively over as well. We've got rid of some of those hanger-oners that were causing a lot of frustration, Dodoro being number one. I really think that we are turning the corner, and I know it's tough because, as I talked about before, you do see teams do it really, really quickly. Unfortunately, that's not the case for us. But I think if we stick fat, the pain and suffering will end. And as we spoke about before, it'll be a fun time when it does.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's hard to see it maybe even next year, although things can change quickly. But I've got my sights set on 2027. So I know that's a long way away, but fourth year Caddy, fourth year Archie Roberts, third year Kako, Draper at 28 or 29, hopefully if he's fit, Caldwell does, all those guys, Brian, I think Zach Reid, hopefully Perko coming on. I think there's room enough there for us to qualify and hopefully win a final eventually.
Yeah, and I think it's how you look at it this year. If you're expecting us to be top four and challenging, then yeah, it's going to be painful and it's going to be a long year. But if you can take joy in seeing Kako and Caddy and Reid stay on the park, and maybe Vicentini get his opportunity, or Zach Johnson come in later on in the year, or Archie Roberts continuing to crack in, that's where you can try and find a positive. But yeah, I know that's pretty hard when you're speaking to a group of people that have been doing it tough for a long time, but that's kind of how I see this year. And once those players get to that, 3, 4, 5 years into their career, we should have a really strong group of relatively mature players that can take it up with the best. So that's how I'm kind of looking at this year. And yeah, happy to lock in 2027. We've been waiting long enough, a couple more years. I'm sure everyone's happy to do that if it means success. Next one down, Dylan Hamrock has said, should we bother bringing in Hayes or should we look at keeping a smaller backline?
It's an interesting question, given Sydney's current setup and the injuries that they've got, which will be dissected in both the previous shows. But no, I think we bring in Hayes. I think he's earned his stripes. I think Reid potentially now can play the Ridley role because he is a pretty good distributor, even though he's taller than Ridley. I'm interested in maybe seeing him shape up on someone that he can sag off a little bit, and maybe Hayes go a little bit more of a lockdown. So I'm interested in seeing Hayes come in, and I think us staying with the way that we are. Apart from that, I will obviously see some other changes as well. With Harry Jones going out, likely to probably get a small or midfielder that's a bit quicker than Jones in return. So I think we're probably making it up for it a little bit there in terms of leg speed. And then Gresh going out. I think, we've got Caldwell and probably Shield that are potentially the first two in line there. So, no, I think bring Hayes in. I think give him a crack.
No, completely agree. I think Scott, we know, traditionally likes to keep the same structure and not mess with that too much. And I think, I know there's been a fair bit of criticism on Mackay this year, but I do think him playing his role has allowed, Reid to really shine, and also Ridley, when he was fit as well. So I think that structure is gonna help Reid continue to grow, and hopefully we see Hayes kind of get opportunities to float in as that third man and intercept mark, because he is a beautiful mark. He's been taking 12, 13, 14 marks a week in the VFL, and they can be some pretty rough conditions out in some of those suburban grounds. So I'm sure getting to Marble's not going to hinder that whatsoever, even though he's obviously taking that step up. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing him come in, and if he doesn't, we will riot as mentioned earlier. Couple of questions around the ruck stocks, JD. One from Matt and Robbie Wise: is the Goldstein thing going to last? And then next one down, can we realistically go through our entire season with Old Gold as number one ruck, or do we risk Vidjo?
We spoke about Goldie last week, but I wanted to speak about it again, predominantly because Cooper Keogh, who is shaping up as a real option for us.
Sorry, Cooper. Sorry, mate. I pumped your tyres up on the mailbag last time, and down with a season-ending injury. So apologies, mate. As soon as we started having a look, you've been hit with the curse. Apologies.
Yeah, simply the association brought him down, which is how we're going. Which leaves, I think, Braden Crossley is the other one that we spoke about as a potential mid-season draft option. Old Gold can definitely not go through the whole season as number one ruck. He's fighting valiantly, but it's quite clear that it's not maybe not even a midterm solution to have him playing in that role. I thought Peter Wright had a really good game on the weekend as well, and was quite effective, even though he didn't really hit the scoreboard. So I think he can continue as a number two ruck, but we need him forward. So I think Vigo will probably come in sooner rather than later, but I also still think that we're probably a pretty good chance of going to hit, get Crossley in the mid-season draft, unless he now goes down with a season-ending injury, because we've spoken about it.
Yeah, completely agree. I don't think there's any question that poor old Gold's not going to get through the entire year. I didn't even think he was going to get through that match against North. There was one stage where he looked absolutely exhausted, and all he could do was drag Cherry to the ground just to get a bit of a break, and he gave away that free kick. But I just think he was just so tired that there was nothing else he could do. So, yeah, poor old Goldie, he's trying his guts out, and we all respect him for it. But I think we all realistically know that's not going to see the year out. Keen to see Vicentini when he gets his opportunity, and then I think that mid-season draft pick, and I'm not going to name a name. I'm just going to stay quiet in that regard. Whoever that is, whoever's likely to get that opportunity is probably going to see some game time, and then it could be a rotation to get us through to the end of the year of all those three.
Now the next question is from Eke A's. There's only really one answer to this question, I think. But if the Bombers ever changed their name, what would you choose?
Well, I hope we never change the name. I know there was some talk maybe a couple of years ago that potentially we needed to change it, and perhaps it was a little bit offensive. Thankfully, those talks have quietened down recently, but I think there is only one answer here, and we'll take credit for it as the Sash. But it'd have to be the Plains, wouldn't it, Joe?
It's obviously the Plains. There's that, and I know that if it ever went out to a vote, a membership vote, Plains would come roosting through, and then I think the Sash would have to get some sort of kickback for that. We should maybe copyright it, actually. But yeah, it's definitely the Plains egg.
Absolutely. There's been 2 questions sent in. I'll read them out, and then you can guess who might have sent them in, Joel. I think we did it this way last time, but for all those playing at home, you can have a guess as well. The first one is, even when we win, we lose. And the second one is, why are we such perennial fucking losers? Any guesses as to who might have said that one in?
This bloke sent more mailbags in than he's been on the pod this year.
He's enjoying firing shots from a distance, I think.
Yeah, he is. It'd be funny if he was Lurker, actually, as well.
The ultimate reveal.
Yeah. The first one here, that even when we win, we lose, that is a feeling that we've had a few times this year. Injuries have certainly played a part in that, but then it's also the playing really, really poorly against poor teams and just getting over the line. It's a hard team to support.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really argue with that. It certainly felt like walking away from that West Coast and North Melbourne game in particular that it did feel a little bit like a loss. The one thing I'll challenge it with is, like I said before, there's many times that we've seen us lose those games by 2 or 3 points. So it's nice to walk away with the win, and sometimes to become a good team, you have to win ugly and you have to win scrappy, and teams will work your game plan out, and they'll try and take away your best assets. So you have to find a way to win dirty and win ugly. But unfortunately, it doesn't fill us with much satisfaction. I was saying to a mate this week as well that I do really feel like teams kind of pencil us in. North pencil us in, West Coast pencil us in. I reckon we can get them. I reckon we can challenge them. And then you often see that week after there's a real drop off. Because I reckon that they get their team up for playing us, and that's what happens when you struggle through. Teams will pick you out to try and get a win on the board. So I do feel like we're a victim of that a little bit, but that's our own doing as well. So there's not much we can do about it.
Yeah.
Interesting question here from Capital Bomber Paul. How would we perform if Brad Scott dragged someone first quarter and demanded a 4-quarter effort? And he refers to Ross Lyon doing it, which I think was the week before, where he dragged Hugo Garcia, gave him a spray on the bench and subbed him out at around quarter time. It worked for his side on the bounce back against Freo. How do coaches demand a 4-quarter effort? Could you see Scotty revving up and giving a spray and maybe subbing someone out Rossi Lyons style?
Uh, it's a bold move. Like I don't mind it, but I don't know if Brad Scott. I think he would give them sprays behind closed doors. I don't know if he's on the boundary line, spray someone type person. And I also don't know if that works for the psyche of the Essendon Football Club. You know, we're clearly a team that loses confidence pretty quickly, and we've got a lot of players that can drop their head pretty quickly or go into their shell pretty quickly. So I think that building the mountain of confidence is going to take a fair bit of time, and I'm not sure if that's the way to do it. Sort of publicly spraying someone. I think, four-quartered effort is kind of going back to what I was saying earlier. I really think it's an on-field thing as well as a coaching thing. It needs to be up to everyone in the team or everyone in the 22 and 23 on the day to demand a four-quarter effort from each other. And we spoke about the leadership before, but I think that sort of leadership should be able to come from everyone in an organisation that's working well. It should be, Kako should be allowed to go up to Merritt if so and say, hey, that's not good enough. Let's get going. So I think that camaraderie and that standard setting for ongoing effort comes back to it being on-field leadership. And that's something for Merritt and Redmond and McGrath and Mardo, to work out, but it's up to everyone to do week in, week out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, the way I read that question, it's often, more framed in terms of how do coaches demand a four-quarter effort. The way I see that is, if you're a really good side and you've put a team away, how do you demand that effort in the third and fourth quarter? But that's certainly not an issue that we've had to worry about for quite some time. And we haven't earned the right to go and coast through a last quarter or sub a Merritt out early. We haven't earned that right. So I don't think it should be taking too much to demand a four-quarter effort. I think that should be ingrained in our players until we at least earn the right to maybe take the foot off the gas. But yeah, as we spoke about in terms of those close games and not being able to put teams away, we haven't been in a position to be able to do that anyway. Next one down, Alec Barnett writing this in a very clear and not inebriated mind state after the win against North Melbourne. I'd love to hear a discussion about Elijah Sardis's game. I know he's still young, but I feel like he's not showing enough as an on-baller compared to some others on our list, and we really needed help in the clearance game against North. Maybe he just needs time as a 20-year-old, but I feel like 5 clearances really flattered him in this game. Maybe I'm too harsh. Love the pod. It's the only thing that keeps me sane as a Bomber fan, lost in a Geelong Cats friendship group.
Poor you, Alec, by the way. Being in a Geelong Cats friendship group, I don't like many groups of supporters, to be fair. But Geelong supporters are awfully smug. And obviously they've had their fair share of success. So for someone who's not won a final for 20 years, you've had close to 20 years of them winning finals constantly. So yeah, that would have been tough. I think he does need time. I think he's working on his game. His hands are really good and his clearance work is really good. He hasn't had a consistent run in the team. Obviously he's just come back into the team. And kind of similar to what I was saying to Reed at the start of the season, you just got to give these guys a bit of time. And I look at a lot of players around the league and you get your Ashcrofts, and your Laylas and stuff like that come out and they're fantastic immediately. Even like a Harley Reid, you look at him, great first year, and now he's having a bit of a slow second year. So I don't think we can put too much pressure on Elijah. I think we just want to see him continuing to improve and having 5 clearances in a game, coming back in is working towards improvement and the sort of the role that we potentially need him to play if Parrish's body continues to kind of not hold up. So I think he is showing signs. Whether it's enough or not, I think, is a fair question, Alec. But I'm willing to give him time, and I hope he gets an extended run in the seniors.
100%. Yeah, I think, like you touched on, he broke his hand. He obviously had a couple of weeks off. He came back to the VFL. He then got pulled out late from the VFL to come and play on the Thursday night with the quick turnaround against North. he has a low time on ground percentage as well. So I think it's probably worth keeping that in mind. He's probably still building the tank for an AFL footballer. His hands are really good. We know his kicking needs some work, but I think give him some time. The one player that I kind of compare him to, and this is obviously early days as well before he really started to develop, but Darcy Parish, when he came into the side, there was a bit of frustration there. He was sort of playing a little bit on ball, but then he gets stuck at half forward. He had low time on ground when he played as well. We've seen him obviously develop into a really strong on baller. I know he's had his injury troubles, which are separate to that, but I just think we need to be patient, and I think, like you touched on, Joel, we've seen so many players come in and look $1 million in impact that I think we've kind of forgotten that, the normal pathway is for players to take some time to develop. And I like the way Essendon have gone about developing Sardis. They've let him go and develop his kicking in particular, but they've also given him plenty of time in the VFL, playing on ball, getting 30 touches a game, plenty of clearances, so that when he does come into the AFL, he gets to play his role. We're not trying to force him in a forward pocket or a half forward role, which he's just not going to be good at. We're kind of letting him develop, and when the opportunity comes to play on ball, he will get that. And I thought his game against North was probably a game where he looked like he'd missed a bit of footy. So yep. I think we stick fat with Elijah.
Yeah, I agree. When you look at, there's always standouts from every draft class that hit straight away. But give him time. Now, the next one's from Bomber Boy 85. Where do you think Zach Johnson's best position is once he comes into the seniors? And then the second part is also, do you feel there's a place for ADJ in the team moving forward?
Yeah, I'll start with Zach Johnson. Yeah, I'm pretty keen to see him full stop. I think he's got exactly what we need in terms of those silky foot skills and decision making, and I could certainly see him coming in and playing half back. I've spoken about this on the pod before, the likes of the Dacoses and the Harry Sheasels. Now they've kind of made that transition to the midfield. They all start kind of in that half-back role just to get a little bit more time with the footy and see the play unfold in front of them. I could certainly see Zach Johnson coming in and being that distributor off half-back for us, and then potentially making his way into the midfield or owning a wing as well. But half-back, certainly where I could see him coming in and making impact in the seniors. Elwyn Davey Jr. in the team moving forward. I think he's on borrowed time, unfortunately, Elwyn, and I say that because I know the NGA kids that we have lined up for next year look really impressive, touch wood, and they both look like they're in a similar mould to Elwyn Davey Jr. in terms of that small pressure forward, half forward role. So yeah, there could be an opportunity later on in the year for Elwyn, some fresh legs towards the back of the year, applying pressure. But he's competing with plenty of similar blokes at the moment, and we're only gonna stock them up next year with the way the draft's looking. We've also got Matt Guelphy to consider coming into a role like that as well. So yeah, maybe an opportunity for him second half of this year, but that's probably it for Elwyn, unfortunately. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to agree with you there on ADJ. I'm a player that we would all love to see really come on, but I think he's probably had his time to get there. In amongst, as you said, the upcoming hopeful plethora of small forward options that we're going to have, and Guelph's certainly going to be above the pecking order for him. There might be a situation where Kako needs a rest, and Guelph's already in the team and he comes in, but I agree. And Zach Johnson, half that flank, I think that makes a lot of sense. Use that foot skill, as you said. Don't throw him into the fire straight away. It'd be very Essendon to just play him in the forward pocket or play him in there on a forward flank, but I think, halfbacks would be great to see him there.
Absolutely. One from Winner Guy, and maybe this was sent in before the North game, because the question is, what do we do with Harry Jones? He doesn't kick many goals, good on the wing at times, but we already have good wings that are better there. What do we do?
He's clearly in Brad Scott's, or has been in Brad Scott's plans for this year. He's played, I think, every game, unless I get mistaken, up until now. He's obviously going to have a spell now. I think him getting back into the team is going to depend on how we're performing as a unit. I don't know if he's going to be an automatic starter and walk back in if people are holding down that wing spot or if our forward line's working well enough. So I agree that he showed some signs early on the wing, but I don't know if he has shown enough. And I think he's probably getting to that age, similar to ADJ, where it's probably worth starting to have a conversation around where his future lies. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets one more year after this year, but I think in my eyes, it's probably a 50-50 as to whether he's going to be at Essendon long term beyond that.
Yeah, I probably tend to agree, and we're obviously going to get a look over the next month or so at a side without Harry Jones, and that's obviously going to change how we set up on those wings, but it's going to be interesting to see how we look kind of kicking long down the wing. I thought Caddy was super impressive against North, the way he presented, and probably kind of covered for having someone like Harry Jones on a wing. You probably don't need two if you've got a really mobile kind of centre half forward pushing up. You'd probably rather them contest and have an extra small to transition the footy and get out the back. So yeah, we're going to get a look at it over the next month, and that'll probably be used to make a decision going forward. But yeah, I'm just not sure with Harry. I think we spoke about him on the pod a couple of weeks ago, and we were kind of all in agreement that we need to decide what he is and develop him in that position. Is he a forward? If so, is he in our best 22? Probably not with what we have at the moment. So let's send him back to the VFL and develop him as a forward. I certainly feel that we kind of pick him in the side and then try and find a spot for him. That's not the way that it should be done. If he's a winger, is he in our best, 2 or 3 wings? Is he a forward? I don't even think that the club know at the moment, but we're going to get a look at the side without him for the next month. So let's have a look at that and make a decision based off of it.
Yeah, that's right. And we wish him all the best in his recovery. But yeah, it'll see how it all plays out. Nice. Well, that's it from us this evening. Appreciate you being available and joining me here, James. It's always fun to unpack the listeners' questions with you.
No, absolute pleasure. It's it's always good fun seeing the questions roll through, and appreciate everyone taking the time to send them through. Keep them coming. We certainly enjoy jumping on and reading through, and nice little change up from our usual structure on the pod. So yeah, keep them coming through. It's good fun.
Yes, that's right. All right. Well, we've got the Swans this weekend, which often is a close one. So let's get behind the boys on Saturday, and hope everyone has a good rest of the week. Thanks all.